Hi, and welcome to the Dayna Show, where we discuss in English day-to-day life of Israeli citizens, our concerns and aspirations for the country, and everything in between. I'm your host, Dayna Kaplan, and we're so glad that you could join us. Eitan, before we start the podcast, I always try to say something about the hostages and to say that not a day goes by that we don't think about them. No matter what else is happening in the country, it's still a very, very important issue for all of us. They're always in our hearts. So I just want to say to everyone, say a prayer. And I hope that they're on their way back right now, that there's some kind of mitzvah that's bringing them back right now, this second, that they come back.
Amen. And if not, keep speaking about them.
Yeah.
Keep speaking about them every day, all the time.
I'm really psyched that you and I are still in touch after all this time. We've met was it 15 years ago or something like that? And I've been following you on social media. Like I said before, you had this incredible wedding video. I've seen you with your children. You raised two beautiful children, two beautiful boys. They should be healthy and safe. I watched you develop your Natie brand. And in 2015, I saw you post this video called I'm That Jew. And I was like, oh my God, what has he done? Shit is going to hit the fan. Because I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish family. I actually was born into a Judaica business. Okay. My father's father opened in the 60s in Canada, a Judaica business. And my father worked there his whole life, and he was promoting Jewish products and Jewish unity and stuff like that. But his view was that Jews should be low profile. Don't be in the media. Don't be in politics. Don't do anything to draw attention. We don't want to give anti-Semites another reason to hate us. And so when I saw your video, I was like, what are the repercussions going to be? And thankfully, it's been a really positive experience. So first of all, welcome to the Dayna Show, Eitan. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi, Dayna.
Hi.
It's nice to see you.
It's amazing to see you.
It's funny because you're talking about my family and my wedding, but so it's funny because we're in touch personally, but my public, I never show my family, but in the advocacy work that I do. But it's good to be here. It's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. Can you give me a little bit of a background? I know your background a little bit, but our viewers don't, about your background in Israel, where you grew up,
Sure.
Your Jewish experience.
Yeah, I can tell you I was born in Israel to a father who's Iraqi, mother who's Bulgarian.
Okay.
She came from Bulgaria. A lot of people don't know that Jews came from different places in the world. They met here. I was born in Tel Aviv, Ramat Gan. And then literally when I was a baby, we moved to Hong Kong, where I grew up until I was 12. Yeah. And then London until I was 19. And then I volunteered to serve in the IDF. And then I did my first degree here in Israel. So I was in Israel for 7 years. And then I went to Boston to do my second degree. And I stayed there and I started working as a creative in advertising at the Volkswagen account, which at the time was like one of the top accounts in the world creatively. So I was very lucky to get
You were living in Boston while you were working there? Okay.
Yeah, I was there. I was there for 6 years. And then New York for almost 7 years, where I was at another two very well-known advertising firms as a creative on Target and AT&T and DHL and SAP and DuPont, like big household name brands. And then I found myself missing home. And so I came back around approximately 15 years ago, maybe 16. I was
when we met. How long have you been? How long have you been back?
I think it's been almost 16 years. Yeah. So I was an executive creative director at an agency here, and then I didn't like it very much. So I started Natie, Natie. It's my name backwards.
I didn't know that. That's so cool. Okay, fine. Wow, I'm such a Dumbo. Okay.
No, it's fine. The URL was available like 20 years ago.
Okay.
So I started my own branding agency. And that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years, working with some very, again, working directly with Apple and YouTube and Google and Gmail and all these big household name clients, but also a lot of Israeli companies um, that range from small to corporate in building their brands. And so that's what I've been doing. But on the side, I've been doing a lot of always the last 15 years or so, a lot of Jewish advocacy, just with my voice. It's not an organization, or it's just a personal endeavor and a passion and something that I feel is very necessary and have felt.
Where does that come from?
I don't know. I think it maybe comes from my family a little bit, in the sense that my family's not religious. We're secular, but I'm the youngest. What's actually interesting about my family is my mother is the oldest in her family. My dad is the oldest in his family.
Okay.
My brother, who is my half brother, he's the oldest in our nucleus. But also, I grew up with my sister because my brother is much older, and and she's the oldest in that nucleus too. So I've always felt like a little, like, kind of like I struggle to have my voice heard. So I think, if I'm honest, I think that the drive comes from probably very personal reasons. But I don't like seeing injustice. I don't like things that are not fair. I don't like things that don't feel right to me. Um, and anti-Semitism is one of those things, and I've experienced it as well, living in all those countries. Even as a kid in Hong Kong, or going to a Jewish school in London, or traveling around the world, or even at work in the States. I felt it sometimes, the undertones, and it really pisses me off. And I think because of, I want to be heard. I think that's kind of like a combo, and I'm a proud Israeli, and even though I'm not religious, I love being Jewish. I love it. It's just like, it's a beautiful thing.
Tell me about the forms of anti-Semitism that you encountered. Is
Oh,
there anything specific that you can think of?
yeah, tons. I mean, literally tons. Some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller. So growing up as a kid in Hong Kong, I went to an international school, and a couple of times, one or two kids did the whole Heil Hitler thing, walking around with their arm raised up. And that's the kids, I think we were like 7, 8, 9 years old, but that's anti-Semitic. I had to deal with that. In England, I went to a Jewish school, so we had to wear a blazer with the emblem, which was a Jewish emblem. And there were schools all around us, and they would used to come and shout slurs and throw stones, and we had to have security. This was in the 80s in Camden Town. I felt it at work in the States. I felt it in the undertones of the political discussions, what we're seeing today, which is, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. I felt that because I worked at ad agencies, and in ad agencies, typically, I'm making a generalization, but the creatives are they lean left, which is fine. I also lean left on a lot of things. But at the time of the Iraq War, and when, I, there was a lot of undertones, and also online.
Online is a whole different
But
story.
there's bullshit anti-Semitism, and then there's real anti-Semitism. The biggest anti-Semitism there is, that not a lot of people talk about, is the anti-Semitic people who like, people think that anti-Semitism is Jew hatred, and there's a lot of people who don't hate Jews who are anti-Semitic because they're silent. To me, when a minority is being targeted, and there's a double standard held towards this minority, and you stay silent, but you're vocal about everyone else, that's a form of anti-Semitism to me. So there's a lot of that, and we're all feeling that. And I feel that personally from friends and colleagues, just like all of us do. Um, and I have many more examples. So I'll give you one more example of anti-Semitism, which is when I first came to Israel, and I was here. I was serving. Afterwards, I continued living here before the States. American basketball players come here to play in the league, and there's this African American basketball player, lovely guy. We all got together, and we started talking. And I said to him, "Hey, So how's Israel so far? And he looked at me and he said this without being callous or mean or evil. He just looked at me very casually and he said, well, it's good. Jews will be Jews, but it's good. I mean, that's anti-Semitism. He wasn't even aware that he was making a generalization, and he's actually a good guy. So that's also a form of anti-Semitism.
I agree, but there's also this certain this syndrome
Mm-hmm.
of like, especially when African Americans, they call each other the N word.
Mm-hmm.
Judaism, we also are a little bit. I don't know if it's a self-hating Jew or something like that, but we have problems within our race
Yes.
as well, and so we're also a little bit um, discriminatory towards ourselves. We
Sure.
put
No,
ourselves down.
there's a lot of. I mean, I think the N word is interesting because the N word is used many times as kind of like as a compliment, or
Mm-hmm.
yo my N, or what's
Mm-hmm.
up my N.
I
It's
don't know
like
what to do when I hear a song and it comes to the N word in the song. I don't know if I should sing it or
I
I
I
should
I I,
omit
s-
it or if I should like.
I had that problem when I was in New York because I love Tupac, I love Biggie, I love rap music. And so I'd be on the subway with my iPod and there'd be like Tupac and every other word is the N word. And so I'd get to that as I'm singing and I'm mouthing the words and I'd kind of like when I got to that word I'd say it very quietly. Um but I think people need to respect that. With us of course there's division. So I the division between us is something that we all need to work on, which is what I'm trying to do desperately, to create a bit more unity. You know,
Eitan, I was really excited to have you here because the my issue with my Jewish identity has been a real issue for my whole life. Um,
join the club.
yeah. Well, I grew up Orthodox, and I I remember I told you that my father had a Judaica business, and he had they had a book section, and I remember as a little kid, I used to sit on the floor and open up the Holocaust books and look at the pictures there. And I remember that was like really my first time that I realized that there was a problem, that people were against us. And when I moved to Israel, um, and well, after I got divorced, actually, I started to question my religiosity and who I really was, and I started to feel like if everybody in the world is so accepting of everybody, everybody's becoming so liberal with the names that you call people and everything. I said to myself, you know what? I don't want my Jewish identity to be the first thing on my list of what classifies me as a human being. I want to be known for all the other things that I am, and my Jewish identity, I wanted it to be on the side. And I actually went as far as dating somebody who wasn't Jewish. And it was a good relationship and we had a nice time and everything. One day he says to me, you're probably the best girlfriend I've ever had. You're incredible. But I'd never marry a Jew. And I was like, I was shocked. I wasn't offended because I know that there's this anti-Semitic
Right.
um
What was the reason? That's very legitimate as far as I'm concerned.
what that he would say that I would never marry a Jew.
Yeah. I mean, we say that about non-Jews. Like, I would never marry a non-Jew.
But because I was
I'm
like,
just saying it's not necessarily anti-Semitic. It might be because he knows that Jewish people want you to convert, and maybe he doesn't want to be Jewish. I mean, I
it
don't know.
wasn't because of
It
that.
was because he
Yeah,
was
because
anti-Semitic.
yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
he knew that I was Israeli, that I lived in Israel,
Hmm.
and we never talked about Israel, but when we started to touch upon it, that's when the Jewish thing started to come up.
Got it.
And I don't look at anti-Semites. One second. I look at people who are anti-Semitic as people who have a problem. Like when my kids were little and there were bullies, I used to say to them, "You're not doing anything wrong. It's them, not you."
Yeah.
And people who are anti Semitic, they have a problem. It's not a rational It's not a rational issue.
Sure.
What do you think it comes from?
I think it comes from many, 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 many hundreds of years of a stigma which we can't escape um, because we're different and because we are quote unquote successful as a community. And I also think that th- the world always needs a scapegoat. And we're the perfect scapegoat because we're not a minority that is kind of like invisible. You know, the the Jewish people are quote unquote successful. And when I say successful, I don't mean with money. I mean the Jewish people are successful in the arts. They're successful in the sciences. They're successful in academia. They're successful in entrepreneurship in so many different fields. And
I think our success is because of the discrimination. I think that our success is because we had no choice but to be as strong as we possibly can because we have so many enemies.
maybe. I mean, but I think that's subjective. I mean, I don't know that that's fact based, but it's certainly a possibility. I mean, I don't know, but what I do know is that when you have successful people, and there's not many of you, then you kind of like stand out. And along with the anti-Semitism comes the biblical reasons for anti-Semitism, or the historical. Like you can talk about, they're still blaming us for killing Jesus. That's a blood libel, or the Spanish Inquisition, where we were literally evicted from a country, or the Holocaust, because we were racially, not people. Apparently, there's always something. So if you let these guys are different, kind of like blow up into something that is bigger, like a mainstream hateful movement, and you don't speak up when it starts, then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, there's no denying that Jews are hated because they're capitalists, but they're also hated because they're socialists. Back in the day, Jews are hated because they're Ashkenazi, but they're also hated because they're Sfaradi. Jews are hated because they're successful and they make lots of money in business, but Jews are also the scum of the earth when they were, like, back in the day, poor. So it doesn't matter. It's whatever evil is most prevalent in the world at the time. Someone will find a reason to look at the Jews and say, "Oh, it's them." And I think a lot of people think that we're paranoid about that. But you'd also be paranoid if, and I'm not talking about the Holocaust, I'm talking about the last couple of thousand years, the discrimination and the stigma, the stereotype is there. I think there's envy. Not everyone, but like there are people that are envious, but they don't even know that they're envious. You know,
And my brother said something interesting also about when I asked him the same question. He's like, because we don't fight back, because they know that they can do it and we're not going to fight back.
you think so? I don't know. I don't know if
I
that's
mean,
true.
it's weird saying that to you because you're a huge advocate for Jewish things, but in general, look at the Holocaust. 6 million people were led to gas chambers,
But
and
we
they
did.
just walked and we walked. There was
There
resistance.
was resistance.
There was resistance, but 6 million.
Hmm.
I saw the other day a clip of Metallica in Russia. They
Hmm.
had 1 million people in the audience. I looked at 1 million people and I multiplied that by 6.
Hmm.
I can't wrap my brain around that. How could so many people not fight back?
I think that I think that when you have a gun to your head, it's a scary thing. A lot of advocates. I don't consider myself an influencer. I'm advocating for the Jewish people through narrative, which is where I feel comfortable. But a lot of people don't know how to do that. So you sit at home and you live your life, and while you're living your life, things outside of your community, outside of your immediate sphere are happening, and this hatred is fostering and growing. you look at the Holocaust, they didn't just cart people off. What they did was they systematically brainwashed the youth first. They started with Hitler Youth. They radicalized the youth, and it happened over the course of years, 5, 6, 7 years. And then, of course, Hitler came to power, and he already had an army in the youth. I mean, it got to the point where, I don't think that people today know this, but people that were part of Hitler Youth would turn in their parents for saying anything against the Nazi regime.
Right.
So when you get to that level of fear, you can pick any minority you want, and you can pit the community against them. It's very difficult to rise up against a culture. You're not talking about like fighting back. It's like, who am I fighting? I'm fighting everyone because the culture has changed. And I think that's the biggest danger. That's the most dangerous anti-Semitism. It's not the anti-Semitism that you can see when it's already blowing up. It's the anti-Semitism that you can see, but you're not acting on when it's still kind of quiet. And that's what's been frustrating for me for the last 15 years, because a lot of people think I just popped on the scene. I've been doing this for a while.
What do you think about what's going on in the United States? I know you had that video with the college kids.
In Canada?
And I wanted to ask, first of all, it's interesting that you brought up how Hitler spoke first to the youth and influenced the youth, because that's what's happening
Yeah.
in the United States right now.
That's how you grow your movement. You get people when their brains are still forming and they're looking for purpose in their lives, and you infect them with hatred and lies and propaganda.
In the United States, where right now there is a democratic government, liberal government, and you can't even call someone by the wrong pronoun. They're so specific of how you should address someone. Why is anti-Semitism, why is anti-Semitic rhetoric so blatantly accepted? Why is anti-Semitism not part of racial discrimination?
Look, I'm not an anti-Semitism expert.
I know that, but you got a little bit of experience.
No, I can give you my opinion.
Your opinion, Eitan.
Yeah, but really, I'm not, because maybe some people think that I am, and I'm not an authority.
I'm just picking your brain because these are
Sure.
things that I think about often.
Sure. This generation of this woke culture, there are certain trigger words that have been made popular by people who have an agenda. Apartheid, it's a big no-no. Genocide, of course, it's a big no-no. Colonialism, it's a big no-no. But if you think about what Western culture did, Western culture is guilty of real genocide. If you look at what Australia did to the Aborigines,
Yeah.
or if you look at what how America came into being in destroying the Native Americans, or you look at the European colonists. So these things are when they are legitimately those things, that they're awful. But what's happened is the enemies of Western culture, and I think it's driven by Islamic fundamentalism and Nazism and Russian, propaganda also. It's a big perfect storm of shit. What they have done is they have infiltrated Western culture and taken those words and applied them to Israel through lies. Because we know that there is no colonialism in the sense that we are in our indigenous homeland. I mean, it's also baffling because it's there for the world to see. It's in the Torah, it's in the Bible. It's also mentioned in the Quran over 50 times that the Jews come from the land of Israel. So this colonialism is a lie. There is no genocide, as we know, because a genocide is literally the targeting of a population and you want to wipe them out. And their population has only grown and is only continuing to grow, the Palestinians. So there is no genocide. There is no apartheid, because we know that, for example, I say this often to people who don't know, I was hospitalized 4 or 5 years ago for 10 days. I had 7 doctors, 4 of them were Arabs. The head of our Supreme Court is an Arab. So there is,
and I work with Arabs in my job as well.
Exactly,
which
is
the exact same roles, the exact same job.
First aid responder.
Yeah.
So you go to the pharmacy. People don't know, but what's happened is they've attributed those awful things to Israel through lies. And the Jewish people overwhelmingly support Israel. 90 to 95% of all Jews are Zionists. So when you're speaking badly of Israel, and then the Jewish people come and support Israel, then all of a sudden they're thrown into this bucket of, well, you're a colonializer. You love apartheid. And this is the way that our enemies have galvanized new enemies. And they are many, because you have a base of 1.6 to 2 billion Muslims who, let's face it, their leaders are not exactly fans of the Jewish people, not Israel, of the Jewish people. If you look at Arab history and Muslim conquests in the land, they subjugated the Jewish people, and they continue to. So their base is massive, the leaders, these people spreading radicalism and hatred. And you have the middle ground, which are not Jews who are clueless, that they can influence. And then you've got us, 16 million Jewish people in the world who do a piss poor job of speaking up for ourselves. Not the Israeli government. I'm talking about every Israeli government, no matter what end of the political sphere you're on, sucks at the Jewish narrative and Jewish leadership and Jewish organizations, and have done a really, really bad job and has failed dismally at making sure that the Jewish people are armed with their own identity, with their own narrative, and making that a priority when things are quiet, not when there's a war. Like when we are just living our lives, there must always be a Jewish narrative out there, because then you would be able to fight what happened on October 8th. And October 8th was the start of the silence of the world, the double standards, the allowing of propaganda on the media, in policy, on campuses. There would have been a fighting chance if the Jewish people, as we're seeing now, would be consistently armed with their own identity, their pride, and their voice.
Why do you think the government doesn't have better representation?
Our government?
Yeah,
Well,
or even Jews. Why do you think that they don't speak up about these things? Because this is not the first time.
Listen, I work with a lot of Israeli startups, okay? Because, even though Natie, which is my branding agency, even though we have, we're based in Tel Aviv, my team is international. And the only thing that we do is we build international brands. We don't do branding for Israel domestically. And what I come across all the time with Israelis who are brilliant. I mean, the whole startup nation thing, it's fucking real, you know? The amount of incredible things that come out of this country are just mind-blowing. But you meet the CMO, you meet the CEO, they don't understand brand. They don't understand the power of narrative. It's an R&D country. R&D meaning let's make things. Brilliant, okay? But once you make it, you have to talk about it. You have to make sure that you are representing it in the best light all the time. You have to invest in what is your message? Who are you? Why are you? How are you different? What's good about you? What's bad about you? Who's your competition? Who are your enemies? They don't invest in that.
Why not?
Because they don't get it. They don't understand the power of brand and how necessary it is. And also, by the way, Jewish organizations. So they'll help with institutionalizing things, with programs, all sorts of things which are very important and critical. But you can just see it. The big failure, if you don't have to be a genius, you just look at what's going on in the world. There's the military war, there's the anti-Semitism, but there's the voice. We don't have a voice. Why? Because they didn't invest in it. They didn't invest in it because it's not a priority. It's the same reason, Dayna, that when you go to a company and they've just raised $5 million, okay, and then the CMO comes to you and says, yeah, we're going to invest, we have $50,000 allocated for brand. And actually, it's not $50,000 for brand. It's marketing. They don't even know the difference between branding and marketing. So the reason why it's happened is because people don't understand just how important figuring out who you are is, why you are, the world that you live in, and how to express it, and how to invest time and money and energy in it, just like you would in a war. That's why it's not working. On October 8th, if we had done 15 years of making sure that the Jewish people are strong with the voice, just like the Palestinians are, I'm not saying October 7th wouldn't have happened, but of course, but October 8th, there would have been an army of people who are speaking up. Even today, who's representing Israel? Okay, who's representing Israel abroad? Like, not from Israel, like Jewish organizations. Who are the people that are doing it?
Yeah.
Any Jewish organizations doing it?
I'm sure there are some, but they're not very,
Well, that's a problem.
prominent.
And that shows you that if you're not even seeing it over a year after October 7th, and you're just seeing it from people like myself or Johnny Daniels or Noah Tishby or Elon Levy or Montana Tucker or Eve Barlow or Lee Kern or Michael Rappaport, these are the people who are doing it,
Right.
which is kind of nuts.
Do you think it makes a difference at the end of the day?
I do.
How many people do you think that they influence? Do you think they actually change people's minds?
Yes. But we have to talk about who the audience is. My audience is the Jewish people. And I think that the most important thing when you start speaking up is, who are you speaking up for? The Jewish people need to be speaking up for themselves. I see my role as showing the Jewish people everywhere that it's okay to say that you're Jewish publicly. That's my objective. What?
Freaks me out when you say that.
Why?
It's just so ingrained in me to be quiet about my Judaism.
Right?
I don't know why. It's just, I guess it's like a Holocaust mentality
Sure.
thing, My
Yeah.
my both of my grandparents, both sides, my grandmother and my father's side was in pogroms, escaped pogroms in Russia, and my my mother's parents were in the Holocaust, and they were always low key. We don't talk about it.
That's
We don't let anyone know that we're Jewish.
I can understand.
You know?
I can understand that mentality, and also that's why I also don't judge. There's a lot of the advocates and the influencers that say, people are not speaking up, they're scum, and that's not me. I mean, unless you're a real hater like a Normal Finkelstein or someone like that, it, it just it's going to take time for people to start openly saying that they're Jewish. But when I put out I'm that Jew, when I put it out there, a lot of people don't know that I made it. A lot of people don't know that there's a film called I'm That Jew. But when I put together that film, I put it out with a caption, and the caption said, "My name is Eitan Chitayat, and I'm that Jew." And the purpose was to be public. The purpose was not to be anonymous, and not for anyone else but me. Why? Because I like being Jewish. I don't see anything wrong in being Jewish. On the contrary, I think that it's a beautiful thing. Not every Jew is perfect, but the culture is driven by really, really good values, and I have nothing to be ashamed of. If anything, I have a responsibility to myself and to my children to change the perception of what being Jewish is, so that my children can be openly Jewish. I believe that people should be able to be who they are, so long as being who you are is a good thing. As long as you're kind and work hard and you have good family values and you contribute to society and all the things that I think that Jewish culture lives and breathes overall, then why not be able to be open about it? And if people don't know that, then know that, motherfucker. Learn. And they're not going to learn unless I put it out there. So I understand the fear, but I'm certainly not advocating everyone being as loud as I am. But for it to be a part of your narrative, when you join a company or you go to a party, why shouldn't you be able to say that you've been to Israel? Why shouldn't you be able to say, "Oh, I can't come to work because it's Yom Kippur"?
100%.
Yeah, it's 100%. But like you're saying, people hide it, and I think that that's what I'm That Jew is. It's like, you don't have to scream it out to the world, but you should make a point to say it because of two reasons. One is it's going to make you feel better, because then you're being who you are, if that's something that's important to you. And two, it'll make us all stronger. And when I say all, I don't just mean the Jewish people. I also mean the world that we live in, the world that we live in, that we've helped to create, which is a world of Western values, it'll help everyone. What type of culture is it when you have to hide who you are? Fuck that.
Yeah, 100%. It's in the past. We don't need to do that anymore. We shouldn't have to do that anymore.
But it
In a
shouldn't have.
world that's so accepting of everyone, we should be accepted as well. There's no reason not to. There's
Well,
no reason not to.
there are plenty of reasons not to if we adhere and listen to the anti-Jewish, anti-Israel rhetoric coming out of so many Muslim countries who are being funded and have a real vision and having a real agenda to destroy the Jewish people. Then the world does believe it because we haven't done a good job in countering it. And
I think, Eitan, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but I think that I believe in karma.
Mhm.
I know it might be a very simplistic view, but I really believe in karma. And I believe that the truth always comes out no matter what.
100%.
And I think that in this situation, when there's so much hatred towards baseless, uh, baseless hatred towards Jews, it's going to come out eventually that there's really no foundation for that hatred, A. And B, the people that are promoting it are hooligans themselves. I mean, you look at October 7th, and it's like you hear people saying that these terrorists were freedom fighters. And then you see, like, it comes out in the and now we needed the stupid UN to actually confirm that there was rape and gang rape and all. These people are freaking hooligans. They're not on the same level as everybody
Yeah,
else.
but that doesn't matter if you're the only person that knows that. It all comes
But
back.
why I'm not the only person
It's
that
it,
knows it.
it
It's documented. They took videos.
No, what I'm saying is like
If it's coming from my opinion,
no, I mean that there is a war of propaganda. There are entities out there that have the money, that have the determination, that have the vision and the tenacity to destroy the reputation of the Jewish people. They do it through Israel, but it's about the Jewish people. And my answer to you is, so what if they're hooligans? When there's 100 hooligans, but you have 100, but the news that they're not hooligans, the lies that they're not hooligans, are being spread to 100 million people, then of course people aren't going to believe that they're hooligans. It's a question of narrative, and that's why I keep going back to that. It doesn't matter what you do on the ground. Branding is about perception. So it's not what you are, it's what people think you are. So the problem is that the Palestinian narrative is based on lies. And by the way, that doesn't mean that I'm not for innocent Palestinians living side by side in peace with us. I mean, that's what I want more than anything. That's what I've been fighting for
100%.
many years.
100%.
And my heart breaks for every single innocent person that is being killed on both sides. And there's no but after that sentence, period. It's just my heart breaks for every single innocent that is being killed, Palestinian as well, every Palestinian innocent. But the narrative that we're hearing consistently from the Palestinians is based on lies. The narrative that you have from us, which is being drowned out by the lies because of the numbers that they have, because we're not being funded, because we're not organized, because we haven't been doing it for 20, 30, 40, hundreds of years like they have, then no one's believing us. We have to go back to investing in the voice of the Jewish people. And that's why every single Jewish person now, if you ask me, needs to have the voice of 100 people, because there's that much on the line. We cannot allow ourselves ever to be in this situation again where our enemies hijack our narrative and convince the world that who they say we are is who we are. And it's a failure on us. They've done a phenomenal job. My hat off to them with what they've done with their marketing.
Do you think that if there were people like you during the Holocaust that we would be able to save ourselves?
I think that there were.
I mean,
You
there
mean people,
were,
when you say people like me, what do you
I
mean?
mean, people who were really outspoken, who were trying to organize people, who were, I mean, I know that there were underground movements, there was resistant movements, but I just can't wrap my mind around that many people dying and them going freely to death. Like I can't imagine that there weren't people who were standing up and fighting back and saying that this is not right. I think that it might have had to do with the fact that there was no internet back then, that Europe was a much more closed area, that people in United States and even Israel, it took a while for them to even know that things were going on to come and rescue them, maybe.
I think people. I mean, people knew. I don't think it's leaders like me personally. I
Not
mean,
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to blow sunshine up your ass
yeah,
and say that you're a leader, but I'm saying that, like, because the Jewish mentality is to be quiet during these times and to accept discrimination, if there were people who had louder voices back then, maybe it would have changed the narrative of the
maybe
situation.
I'm pretty sure, and I've read stories about people that did speak up, that did warn. But I think the solution lies not in the narrative. You know, a lot of people, and this is a misconception, a lot of people look towards Jewish advocates, especially online right now. And while I think it's important, I'm not going to be like, oh, you know, I don't think that we're the solution. I think that we're an important part of the problem. Our role is, and this is my personal opinion, yes, I'm not speaking for anyone else, you know, and I think that all advocates who are speaking up for the Jewish people in Israel right now are doing very important work. But I see our role as empowering other people to speak up. What's missing right now, and I believe what was missing back in the day, and again, I don't know, is not just speaking up, it's leadership, meaning you need Jewish leadership. And this doesn't mean Israel. Jewish leadership means who are the people that are going to take the Columbia University fiasco? Who are the people that are going to take them to task? Shai Davidai? Shai Davidai is a fucking professor. He's my mate. You know, he's fighting. Who is supporting him? Where's Jewish leadership there?
Right, you're
When you brought up
100%.
Concordia in Montreal, when I, you know, people might not have seen the video, but like, yeah, when I was confronted with, you know, 300 to 400 students that were rabid Hamas supporters.
I saw that. Wow.
Right.
Wow.
But do you know the story? The story is that I went there because I heard that there was going to be a walkout. The walkout means that pro-Palestinian advocates leave their classes and they go and they start, you know, doing what they do, making a ruckus, demonstrating, and there's Jewish students there. I got there. There's like 3 or 4 Jewish students and hundreds of people supporting Hamas. Hundreds of people, and I want you to think about this, wearing the Israeli flag on a necklace, okay? But it's Palestinian colors, the whole thing. Can you imagine, and you're from Canada, you're from Toronto, can you imagine what it's like going to school as a Jew every day and just being in class with people who are walking around with symbols that are basically replacing your country? Okay, great. Going back to the event of Concordia, where was the Jewish community? Where was the leadership? Where is the leadership? I say this not to piss on and put Jewish leadership down. I say this as a this is what happened. This is what is happening. This needs to change. There cannot be a situation where Jewish students are alone on campuses like that. There has to be a movement to support them, to empower them, to be there physically with them. So to me, going back to what you originally asked me about, like, if there were people like me, yes, I'm sure that people were speaking up. But what you need are the Jewish people in all of their brilliance, with entrepreneurial know-how, with political know-how, with legal know-how, with commercial know-how, with entertainment influence, media, all of the things that, all of the verticals that we're in, those are the people that need to start rising up. And we need a Steve Jobs, you know, to lead us. That we don't have anywhere. But I do think that there has been, and you know this, there has been an awakening. And I think that out of this awakening, new Jewish leaders are going to rise, and they're not going to be the same Jewish leaders of the last 20 years who have been too comfortable. They're going to be ferocious. They're going to be strong, resilient. They're going to take the fight to them. And those are the people that we need to look out for. And it will take time. Our enemies have been at it for decades with narrative. I say this as a mantra to people so that they understand.
Yeah.
This is day one. We haven't started yet.
How do you feel about your role in this? How do you feel about being an advocate for I'm That Jew, for this cause? How has it been for you?
That's a good question. I take it day by day because a lot of people think that this is my life, and it's not. I have a small branding agency. That's what I do. And on October 7th, I just made a decision. I'm all in on this, and my career will have to wait.
Well, it started before in 2015, right?
Yeah,
but I mean, when you put out that video, it started getting the ball rolling, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I put out an article, I think it was almost 15 years ago, called "Shalom Motherfucker," and that went super viral at the time. And then I'm That Jew. And then over the years, I've always put things out there which are just to strengthen, to speak to my people, and to help. But October 7th was the day when I just said, okay, because I've been doing that for many years. But it's kind of like, in addition to what I do, I'll kind of like do that. But since October 7th, it's been like all in. And it's been hard. It's very difficult to talk about how hard it is because I feel guilty talking about how hard it is when look at what so many people are going through.
Yeah.
Parents, your kids are in Lebanon right now. I'm not complaining, but yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
From what perspective isn't easy? In terms of the amount of time, the time investment, or the backlash?
I'm a professional brand builder. I mean, I've been in the game for building brands for almost 30 years. That's what I do. I have my own agency, and then all of a sudden, I'm making videos about Jewish anything about Israel 24/7, and I'm doing it on social media, that's not what I do. I mean, people don't know that, but I don't want to be an influencer. You have these kids that are coming up and they live on TikTok, and that's not fucking me. I'm 53, I'm married, you met my wife, I've got the kids. I would rather be doing what I'm really good at, but I made a decision that we need to speak now to the Jewish people in a big way and wake everyone up to be openly Jewish, and to start the process of people coming around to embracing their identity openly. And I don't think anyone else is doing that, and I don't think anyone else can do that like I'm doing it. So I'm very committed. So I'm filled with purpose.
You feel a lot of responsibility.
I feel a lot of responsibility. Yeah, the first time I wore this shirt was on Chris Cuomo. Yeah, I don't know if you saw. I was interviewed by. So he's a big deal, and I've been wearing this shirt for a while. But like, to be on national, with millions of people wearing this shirt, I got off the interview and I burst into tears.
Really?
Because I was the pressure of representing, because I'm trying to represent. That's a huge responsibility. Social media is a beast. I don't just hold up the camera and make films. I make fully produced pieces. I make animations. I think.
So the videos that you're like walking down the street in Tel Aviv,
those are spontaneous. Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'm not. I haven't really planned this. And
I haven't.
Just had a thought that I'd like to share.
Those are completely spontaneous. But the ones where I'm on a black background, or the Jewish people banners, or the I'm That Jew banners, or the series that I'm doing E&E with Ellie, those things there's a cost. They take a lot of work. It takes film crew and sound and engineering and an animator and a producer, and this is new. It's not something that I do. So on a personal level, it's been a massive adjustment, and I'm continuing with Natie. And I'm at the same time, I'm trying to grow and scale I'm That Jew into a grassroots movement.
How do you balance that?
I
You
just do.
know.
I don't know. There is no balance, I mean, right now, there's no balance. I'm trying to help everyone and to do everything, but that's me. That's how I am. It's not easy, but I think I'm trying to now raise funds so that I can scale a bit, get a teeny team to help me. Because it's been like since I started all of this advocacy, it's like 250 million views of my work, and most of it is I'm That Jew. So people are embracing it, and
How's it been accepted by people?
I think wonderfully. I mean, the thing that I love about it personally, and it's not because I came up with it, is sometimes I read the script that I wrote for I'm That Jew, and the script for I'm That Jew is the basis of everything. Um, and I'm like, wow, it 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 allows every Jewish person to own what Jewish is for them. So you could be, that just starting out in a podcast Jew, but you could also be that dead weightlifting Jew, or you could be that mother of how many? The mother of two Jew.
Oh, three. I have three, but two are in the army.
Okay, yeah. So the mother of three, it, and every minute it can change. So what it does is it allows us to think of ourselves, I think, first and foremost, as the multicultural, multi-doing, multi-everything people that we are, and we break our own stereotype. But I think that the important thing is that it allows you to define, like, what type of Jew are you? I'm That Jew. It's also a conversation starter. So when I wear this shirt in the States, and you probably saw this on social,
Yeah.
nonstop people would approach me and they would just say, "Hey, I love your shirt and I'm with you." Or Jewish people would come to me.
Cool.
Well,
That's so cool,
it
Eitan.
is. It actually is. And also there's like shirts with statements. And so people would come up to me and they would ask me, "Well, what do you mean that proud and unapologetic Zionist Jew?" I'm like, well, what do you want to know? Well, isn't Zionism bad? Well, actually, Zionism isn't bad. Zionism is blah blah blah. So it's an what I love about I'm That Jew is it's an opportunity to for us to talk about who we are and for other people to talk about who we are. I'm a big fan of, as I said, rap music and Tupac and Biggie. So Biggie, in one of his interviews, he said, this is after the West Coast East Coast beef, and a lot of people were hating on him, and he was appealing to the West Coast because he was from the East Coast when he said, "Hey, it's people just need to get to know me. To know me is to love me." And I don't think that he meant that in an arrogant way. I think what he meant was like, if you really get to know me and you don't listen to the rumors, then you'll see that I'm not what you think I am. And I think that that is the opportunity of I'm That Jew. Own it yourself, rediscover who you are, the bits that are, that you feel comfortable showing and talking about, and then allow other people to get to know you and be outwardly Jewish. Because if you hide your identity, regardless of what it is, unless you're a fucking Nazi, a real Nazi, not like they accuse us of being Nazis, then yeah, you better fucking hide who you are. But if you're a good person, and if you then why would you ever hide it? Do Muslims hide who they are? Do Hindus hide who they are? Do Christians or hide who they are? We are able to hide who we are because of fear. But you ask a black person in America, they can't hide who they are. They don't have that. They don't have that option even. So on the one hand, it's a blessing, but honestly, it's a curse because you should never hide who you are. And that's not a Jewish thing. I mean, it's a Jewish value, but you shouldn't hide who you are because it's a shitty way to live. So if you're Jewish and it's important to you, then you should be able to say it, even if you don't make it your life's purpose, but you can, yeah, I'm Jewish.
Was I'm That Jew geared towards primarily Jews in the diaspora, or Jews in Israel, or Jews everywhere?
Look, it was in English, so it was definitely, and that's because that's my comfort zone to speak in English. But it speaks to every Jew. My audience is primarily diaspora Jews, which is actually interesting because there are not a lot of Israeli advocates that are doing work to strengthen diaspora Jews. And I think a lot of Jewish people abroad have come to me and said, oh my God, thank you. And you're going through such an awful time in Israel. They really appreciate that I'm trying to help them. But that's my comfort zone. And I understand the international Jewish community. I think that the audience is predominantly, of course, abroad. But I think that what Israelis need to do, and they're not going to do it without leadership, is they need to understand very quickly and internalize and externalize and keep it front of mind for many, many years to come. That when they came over those borders, they didn't say, let's get the Israelis. They said, Yehud. They said, let's get the Jews. And not only the Jews, but also the most peace-loving Jews in the world were massacred.
Yeah.
So Israelis need to understand that just like the world, the Jewish world, came to our aid when we needed it after October 7th, we need to, even as missiles are dropping on us from Iran and from the Houthis and from Hamas, even in that time, we need to support our Jewish brothers and sisters in the diaspora. And I'm That Jew was written to my Jewish brothers and sisters. It was not written to anyone else. People think it's about anti-Semitism and it's to fight anti-Semitism. And maybe it's a tool, but it was actually written to strengthen our people out of a conversation I had with a friend who was suffering abroad at the time. So the audience is international, but Israelis need to get with the program. And that's going to come not from people like Eitan Chitayat. That's going to come from leaders who get that and invest in narrative being created by people like Eitan Chitayat.
One of the things that I took away from the video from I'm That Jew was it gave me courage, and it gave me confidence and also a sense of pride in my Judaism. And a big thing with me in my personal life is not to be a victim. I'm not a victim. I don't want people to feel bad for me. And I'm not, as a Jew, I don't want people to feel bad for me. And as much as I can, I want to be able to also, I mean, through my podcast, is to strengthen the Jewish culture, society in Israel. I don't have the ability right now or the confidence right now to do what you're doing, but when I saw the video, it helped me in my endeavor now to have the confidence to speak up and at least bring to the forefront in my own way people who I think are making a difference in this country to strengthen the people in this country.
Well, first of all, I'm really glad and grateful that you feel that way. Um,
It's scary. It's a little
yeah,
scary.
sure, it is. But like you have kids. I mean, I tell my kids, yeah, it's scary, but what are you going to do with that fear? Are you going to get up on that wall that's 1 meter high and jump? Or are you going to be scared and not do it? And they have to make that choice. Like, I don't push them, but they have to make that choice. And I think that's why I don't judge people who are not speaking up right now. This is a long battle. We have to keep at it, and we have to keep making people understand why it's so important to speak up. You don't want to speak up because if you don't, they're gonna come and murder you. You want people to speak up because it's a shitty way to live if you can't. But yeah, it is scary. It's scary, and I certainly wouldn't recommend wearing an I'm That Jew T-shirt and walking into
Ramallah.
Ramallah. Well, that's Israel,
Yeah.
but or Toronto. You have to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the other hand, I can tell you, Dayna, because you said that the film made you feel strong. People who wear this shirt, and people are buying it, and people can go to starsofthetribe.com and they can get one, or a mug, or whatever they want, whatever they feel complicated. When you wear this shirt, you go into your cupboard in the morning. This is what people have told me. And they say, okay, I can wear this. I'm going to wear my I'm That Jew shirt today. And then they take the shirt out and they look at it and they go, fuck. And they put it on. And then they go outside and it's literally, let's see what happens. And overwhelmingly positive, because people in their everyday lives are not going to say, oh my God, there's there's a Jew, they're actually going to respect you, and the silent majority comes out
because of your beitzim.
because they're actually, I think, they get it and they're with you. But that's the Jewish person's way of expressing it, and it empowers. And by the way, the bullies, the haters, if you wear it at a demonstration, or if you're walking in some shady area at night, which is maybe, hints of anti-Semitism there, that's probably not a good idea, because they come at you in packs. Hate is delivered by bullies, but love, the individual will come to you. And I got so much love, but we just have to keep at it. We have to keep speaking.
I'm so grateful for you and for what you did. And maybe I don't send you enough messages to give you encouragement, but quietly I'm giving you a yashar koach and wishing you so much success in this endeavor. And I speak for, I don't know who I speak for Jewish people in Israel and everywhere, that you should just keep going, and we're proud of you and we're behind you, and we'll try to, and hopefully it'll influence us to make similar moves. And I just hope that, we can all get along. I want to do a knock knock joke with you.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
I'm that Jew. Continue.
That's so bad. It's actually
wait,
good.
You're not finished yet. Oh. I'm that Jew who?
I'm that Jew who?
I'm that Jew who just wants everyone to fucking get along already. That's the Jew that I am. Eitan, thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome, and thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Dayna Show. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to the podcast, like and share with your friends on social media, and rate us 5 stars. Don't forget to tune in next week, and we'll see you then.